right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Fearcast. This is the podcast dedicated to OCD and anxiety spectrum disorders, and getting your life back. I'm your host, Kevin Foss, and I'm a licensed therapist specializing in OCD and anxiety disorders. And thank you all so much for joining me for today's episode. For those of you who are new, this is a question and answer based show where you can send me a question about OCD and anxiety stuff, and I will be happy to answer. Every question, I will read it, consider it, and likely put it up on a future episode. You can send me an audio question, which is how today's question got in. You can send me an audio question. You can also send me you can send me an audio question. Go to fearcastpodcast.com. Click on the speech pipe button there, and you can send me a message there. You can also send me a message by going over to Instagram. I am Fearcast Podcast over there, and you can send me a DM and click on the little microphone button. It sends the audio question in. Those get to the tippity top of the list, but you can also send in a regular old just text question, email, however you want to call it or frame it. Do that over at fearcastpodcast.com. You can also send me a question over at Instagram. Either way works for me. So we do have a bunch of questions in the backlog, but again, audio questions get to the top of the list. This question came in a little while ago, and I was working hard to try to get these two guests. I roped in two people to help me answer this question. And I love this question, and I really wanted to get these two people in to talk about this with me. So when I get audio questions in, a lot of times I can try to answer them and try to give some of my thoughts and ideas in ways that I think could be helpful. But sometimes I want to get other people in who have a specific have specific knowledge about that subject, or are going to have a different angle on it than perhaps I will. And I want to get their voice on here to help talk about those things. And this is what I was trying to do, is to get not just one person, but two people in. So one person that I'm going to help, the one person that's going to join me is Elena Fasan. I've had her on the podcast before. She's been a guest here, and she is also a specialist in OCD. I've known her for many, many years. And her real interest is in teens, adolescents, young adults with OCD and anxiety disorders. So I wanted to have her in to help answer this. But you know what? I also roped in a child development specialist, a professor at a local college. She's fantastic. She's knowledgeable, and she's also my sister-in-law. So let me tell you about them in just a minute. The question that came in is going to be about, and I'll play it here in just a minute, but it's about, it kind of wants to, or it's trying to get at a question that a lot of parents trying to raise kids with OCD are struggling with. Maybe even parents with OCD are also struggling with, is how do you strike that balance between trying to raise your kids, trying to be honest and open and foster open and honest communication with your kids, but also not wanting to, give in and foster the OCD and trying to give voice to that. So, you don't want to send the message that you can't talk. But we also know that when you are talking and sharing some ideas, sometimes reassurances come out. So how do we strike this balance? And that's why I wanted to have these two people on, and we'll talk about this in a little bit. I haven't done the interview yet, so we're just prepping for this. So you will be as surprised as I am with the outcome. So it's going to be great. These two people are wonderful, very knowledgeable, and I think it's going to be a fun and spirited conversation. Hopefully it didn't get too sassy. I'm sure both of them will be very happy to share very uncomfortable stories about me, as they've known me for a long time. But hopefully we will keep those away. All right, so let me just tell you a little bit about these two folks, and then we'll get on to the questions. So the first person, Elena Fasan. Elena Fasan is a licensed clinical social worker who specializes in using evidence-based practices to treat people with OCD and anxiety disorders. She is the director of the Children's OCD and Anxiety Collective in Los Angeles. She also works with parents, including using space treatments, and previously worked as an adjunct professor in the Department of Child and Adolescent Development at California State University, Northridge. Now, the next person is Jenny Foss. Similar name, right? Crazy. Jenny Foss is a child development instructor with the Ventura County Community College District, bringing over 20 years of experience advocating for and supporting young children, teens, and families. She is the co-creator of RISE, a training for faculty in developing responsive, inclusive, and student-centered engagement. She's the creator of the Finish the Drawing coloring book called Your Creation. She's a mother of 2 and a sister-in-law to yours truly. Now, she added that part. She wanted me to say that, not me. I'll also say that she also holds bachelor's and master's degrees in child development and family students with a concentration in child care administration. So these are probably 2 best people I know to talk about this, and 2 of the best people that I know. I don't need to qualify that. Why am I doing this? Anyways, let's get on to the question.
So we have a question for the podcast. Moral OCD kind of muddies the waters when you're trying to raise a child to be a good human. And so I would like to know where the line is between wanting her to share things with me and wanting to guide her in life with the questions she has about things that come up, especially getting into the age of hormones, and not wanting to give in to her compulsions of feeling like she has to share stuff with me or confessing or checking or seeking reassurance.
Like if I feel like I accidentally said something that was mean to one of my friends, or that something uncomfortable happened at school that I have to tell my mom, and it kind of feels like a burden has been taken off my shoulders after I tell her.
Okay. So what do we do about that? I mean, we know there's some moral scrup going on here, but we also know that it's important to guide our kids and teach them how to be people and to be good people. But we just don't know where to draw the line. Can you answer our question, please?
All right, Elena and Jenny, thank you so much for joining us for today to answer this question. The professors are here today. So glad to have both of you take a moment away from academia to come out of the halls of knowledge and learning to help us understand this question.
You're welcome. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me.
Absolutely. Well, all right. So, why don't we? So, as we were talking a little earlier about this, so I wanted both of you on here to help address this question, because it's this real delicate balance for not only this parent, but I think for a lot of parents who are working with or who are raising kids. That it's just, how do you best reach both sides of this? And for a lot of kids with OCD, parents struggle and the kids struggle with, what can I say? How do I explain things? Am I explaining too much? Am I not explaining enough? I don't want to give into a compulsion, but I also don't want to just say, tough kid, you're on your own. So it's a delicate balance. So I wanted to have Elena on. She's returned yet again to talk about her experience working with kids and adolescents with OCD. But I also wanted to have Jenny on to talk about what child development can, to talk about child development, to talk about developing boundaries, developing an open and honest communication patterns with your kids, and what that looks like with neurotypical kids, and to have that dovetailed in with Elena's experience. So that's where we're going to go, everybody. So, so Jenny, why don't you lead us off with what are your thoughts with this parent? What are some thoughts that you have that how do you set them straight? Where to go?
Well, I will say, listening to this caller or these callers really made me smile. They really made me smile, because this young caller just seems very self-aware. They're very aware of how they feel about things, and that I really took to them describing that when they come home and feel the need to share, that a burden is lifted from them. I think that's a really important piece that I want to kind of hang on to. And then also to validate the parent. I mean, I can definitely relate wanting to validate and navigate and guide their kids and wanting to do right by their kids. And a lot is happening, right, in adolescence. There's a lot of changes going on. And one of those changes is just this expansion of the brain and our capacity to think things in a much more deep way. Our morality is changing. Our ethics are growing. Our personal opinion about self, our identity development. I mean, there's so many things that are happening. So it's not surprising to me that this teen is coming home from school having experience things. And I love how they said accidentally might have said something mean, or something uncomfortable happened at school. I want kids to come home and have someone safe to talk to when something uncomfortable happens at school. That's my wish for a lot of teens.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And so with this teen, I mean, the fact that their burden is lifted after speaking to their mother, I think speaks volumes. And I can understand how the parent just doesn't know how far to kind of take it. At this stage in adolescence, I think, because this caller is entering adolescence. Didn't they say their age? Do we know the age of this young caller?
I don't remember them saying their specific age.
Either. I made that assumption too, though, to be honest.
Okay, well, regardless of school age or adolescent.
Well, how do you define? Because I define adolescence as starting around age 10. So how would you define it, Jenny?
Yeah, I think 11 and 12 is really the cusp. It's a range. Development's a range, right? We can see elements in children 10 and then start to see them at 13 and other people. So I don't want to kind of give a specific concrete age because development is a range, but we'll just say 10 to 12, right? They're entering adolescence and can really benefit from having a safe person to talk to unload their feelings. I really like Lisa D'Amour. She's a clinical psychologist.
Yes.
And her most recent book, Emotional Lives of Teenagers, of Adolescents, talks about some myths. Yes, thank you. Some myths about about emotions and how they're not all bad and scary. But in that book, she also talks about some coping mechanisms that teens kind of create on their own, but also may need adults to kind of guide them. And one of them is externalization. And really all that is sharing with someone else your big emotions, your deep thoughts, your, unfiltered, if you will, thoughts, and having someone, she calls it hold your emotional trash, which I kind of like that metaphor. And it sounds like this parent is doing that, right? Holding the emotional trash and listening to their kid when they come home from school, talking about whatever. And so part of what made me smile is my hope for all children is that they have a safe adult to do that. So it already makes me feel like this parent is already stepping up in that way, which is awesome.
And even calling, I think, points to that, right?
Yes,
to being
absolutely.
a secure, safe person for this child. And I agree, the younger caller was very articulate and aware.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I want to put it in the context for a moment of OCD, though, because the caller and her mother both described moral scrupulosity, right?
Mm-hmm.
So how do parents separate morality and moral scrupulosity? So Kevin, why don't you give us a definition of, in this case, how do you define moral scrupulosity?
Moral scrupulosity would be a hyper focus on one. I mean, I have to use the word to define the word. So
go ahead.
So it would be a hyper focus on your morality. Am I doing the right thing? Am I being good enough? Am I to other people or to myself or to the universe or God? Am I doing right? So
a good enough person.
Yeah. And
right.
and again, we've talked on this podcast about how moral scrupulosity or moral concerns can find its way into every subtype. There's certainly the argument that morality is within every subtype of OCD. So it's just this concern that Elena's giving me the look like that's crazy, but it's okay. I wouldn't overjudge the face. But the John Hirschfeld said that, so we can talk about that later. We'll argue with him this summer.
It just made me think of something else.
Oh, okay.
Yes,
it's a face.
But
anyway, so just a concern. Am I doing the right thing? So with this kid, it may be, I said this thing, and I certainly heard that with, I came home, I accidentally said something, I hurt someone with feelings, and I felt bad about it. So I have to do the thing to feel right. So I did something bad.
Yes.
If we do something bad, that feeling that we have is guilt, and we should feel that because it puts us back on track for being the good and moral person that we're trying to be. But with OCD, it can elevate that to a little teeny tiny minor thing.
Exactly.
Can become the biggest, most imperative thing. And now I have to say something and get someone to just say, "You're okay," for me to let that go.
Yes. So that's where I think it gets tricky, So if we back up, I want to say for parents, morality is not the same as having OCD surrounding morality. And Jenny's absolutely right in terms of the range, right? So developmental age is different from developmental stage, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think that it's important in terms of that unburdening. What is the function of the confession? Because for a child with OCD, the function of that confession might be compulsive, and actually is. The specific question was, how do I make sure that my client stays moral? Or my child stays moral? Well, I don't know. Maybe the parent is a therapist or somebody with clients. But I think that my response to that is, A, they will make immoral, wrong choices, unethical choices. That's part of learning and developing. They will. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And we can't prevent that. And that's actually healthy and creates healthy guilt. Right? If it's unburdening and the child or the young, the adolescent in the caller seemed to have awareness that this was a compulsive confession. So for these families, what I would say is, let's start with some ground rules of what we need to know. And another clue is for parents, if they're getting in the car or they're telling me things and my response is like, that's really not a big deal. Why are you telling me that? It's more likely to be a confession if the kid has OCD than just a scrupulous kid who really doesn't know the boundary yet and is unsure. Does that make sense?
Is that more along the lines of a kid who may be, who may not be down the treatment route, or may have not, who may not have, it may not be diagnosed with OCD and all that stuff, is that this might be the way that they start to notice that a kid might be more scrupulous than not, is they're coming home from school and confessing these little teeny tiny minor things. That might be a red flag for some parents to say maybe there's something else afoot than just the basic or the typical thing of, I feel bad about this thing, in which you can talk about that, or with which you should talk about.
And a very common time for children to express things that happen throughout the day is at the convenient time of bedtime. And so I tend to, when I work with families, it usually isn't the first thing that comes out of their mouth in the car. It's usually at bedtime when things are quiet and it's dark and they don't have to look at the parent when they say these things. Not to say that all children or teens are the same, but that is kind of the typical time that those conversations happen. And then a conversation happens, and the hope or the ideal is that a parent is there to, or an adult is there to listen and validate and support. And then it kind of, it fades, right? It just kind of like is there, unless there is another situation the next day that then is similar or involves the same peer or whatever, that is a continued thing, which is a different kind of situation. But from what I'm hearing from you, Elena, it's the instinct almost to come in the car and just like, it's almost been, is it like a not a teapot pressure, but it's almost like the time to then release?
Yeah, so it's possible. I'll just give you the difference as well as I can between like a typical, let's say 11-year-old, right? Who has something happen at school and they feel bad about it and they're really not sure, but it just kind of, they think about it in the moment and then it doesn't come up till bedtime and it doesn't feel like there's urgency around it, but they've been kind of, maybe it's popped up a little throughout the day and they're like, I don't think mom and dad would think that I was my best self in that moment. Maybe I should, or I need guidance with this because I don't know how to handle it, or I feel bad. And then they talk about it and it's talked through and there's a relief. And if the same thing comes up again the next day, it's because they're navigating a social issue or a school issue or a system issue, typically, right? Yeah. If it's OCD, they may have been holding it at bay all day. Something minor happened where maybe they actually did hurt someone's feelings, and now they're really overvaluing it in their mind. It's a horrible catastrophe. Mm-hmm. They're a horrible person. Right. Or nothing happened. And their OCD went, did you see your friend's face when she walked away?
Yeah.
You are a terrible person. You did something horrible. Or with older kids, it might be like, I think that I said something offensive in the Canva portal to my teacher.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And then they're going back and checking. So the urgency is not released, right? With a typical kid, everything's okay. With a kid with OCD, the content matters less. And what you said earlier, Jenny, I think is really important. The key is to focus on the emotion.
Mm-hmm.
If it's OCD. I can see that you are so wanting to confess something to me right now, but I think that's your OCD talking.
Mm-hmm.
So we set a ground rules of these are the things in our family that you need to tell us, right? That are and then OCD might try to play with that, but it's okay because then we can kind of learn where the boundary is.
Mm-hmm. When I was listening to the caller, I had questions I wanted to ask, right? So when the young caller said that their burden is released, I wanted to say, and then what? Right? Like, and then you go on with homework and dinner and whatever you have going on, or
right.
Or does that not satisfy? Do you need more to lift that burden? And so those are questions that I had listening to them. Yeah.
Such a good question, because I would say, and I think Kevin would agree with me, that in OCD, it's temporary relief.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And taking away whatever the distress is negatively reinforces the cycle.
Yeah.
And decreases the belief that you can handle having that experience, whatever it is, and not confessing because it's not something that needs to be confessed.
Well, and that's the value of the relationship, right? When a child or a teen has a trusting adult to just hold space, just to hold the emotional trash, right? And not have to fix or solve or take their pain away, but just be someone who could listen. And when a teen or when a child, when people, but we're talking about teens and children here.
Yeah.
When they feel seen and heard, and most importantly, believed in, to say, like, I trust that you can handle this uncertainty. I trust that you can handle, that does a person that's huge, right?
Beautiful, yes.
And you mentioned, Elena, ground rules, and I wanted to kind of continue that, because would it be appropriate to suggest to this parent, like limiting the time, like the time limit of these conversations, or to tell the parent that it's okay to limit your number of reassurances, right? Is that part of like the call to action here?
Bingo. And I'm wondering if this family, they already are actively in treatment, because the younger caller seemed to, in my view, I don't know if this is what you guys heard, because, I'm an OCD therapist, so I might have bias. It seemed like she was almost sheepishly admitting that I know I was kind of confessing, and the burden relieved is that temporary relief that keeps you in the cycle. But I don't know if I'm reading too much into that.
And when I hear you, and this is another reason why I wanted to have both of you on, is that it feels like there is for maybe an OCD therapist a dog whistle in there that sounds very OCD, but to also, especially for for parents with raising kids with OCD, or even just loved ones living with and interacting with, there is that tendency to then say, oh, well, you have OCD, so every weird behavior, everything that I think is annoying or too much, I'm going to label that as OCD and not give them the benefit of the doubt that maybe it's a genuine question or concern. And I think that's one of those struggles that a lot of parents and loved ones struggle with is, am I giving in or am I not? You know?
Mm-hmm. Totally. And if for this particular family, if they're already in therapy, that's collaboration. What you're suggesting, Jenny, is such a good idea. And what we do, we reduce what we call family accommodation, the things you are doing and not doing to prevent your child, teen, emerging adult partner to not have distress, right? Mm-hmm. So if it is a compulsion, the confession, the child, the teen tells their parent, and then the parent says, oh, well, that's no big deal. Now they have relief, right? Which isn't helpful in that case. So I would say work with the therapist to gradually reduce it, set limits on it. And then one thing that I really like to suggest, because this is useful just in general for people, is, all right, if say they've worked with the therapist, or if they don't have a therapist, they've worked it out, like we're going to go from like 10 confessions down over time to 0, right? There's also a process. So before you confess, we're going to do some tools. We're going to identify your thoughts and your feelings and your sensations in your body. We're going to drop anchor. We're going to diffuse. We're going to allow some of those feelings to be there for a little while. And maybe we're also going to do that and see if we could delay the compulsion, not in the sense of like, okay, now I can do it. But maybe if we do these, maybe you don't even need to use this one time to compulse.
Going to let that urgency come down.
Right. Exactly. Put a little space there.
And not to, and no pun intended, but a lot of what we're talking about here can for some parents who are looking for guidance on how to do that. There's an entire treatment program called SPACE that is designed for this to help parents recognize where they are accommodating inappropriately for their kids' symptoms and start pulling back on those accommodations. And a lot of that has to do with communicating with them about, here are all your compulsions, here are all the things that we think as mom and dad are problematic, and here's how we're going to pull back on them. Now that
they're not helpful for you
because they're not helpful, basically. Right?
Yeah.
But I think that can be used in conjunction with kind of what we're talking about here. Of rather than doing 10 reassurances a day, we're only going to do 5 for right now. So you get 5 for free, and then after that, you're cut off.
You're
right?
Charged.
Yeah, now
and it builds awareness too. Well,
go to the dishes, and then you'll get another one.
Exactly.
Maybe not.
You can use tickets, or like some people will make like a punch card, like you would at like Starbucks or wherever you're getting your coffee or whatever.
Yeah.
So there's ways to do it, but that also builds awareness. Like, I don't know, you only have 2 left. Are you sure you want to do this right now?
Yeah, and that provides a moment to prioritize, right? How heavy is this? Is it a 10 situation or is it a 3 situation, right? And use them for your 8s, 9s, and 10s.
Yeah.
Are you sure you're not a therapist, Jenny?
And I love what we were talking about, where you were, as I started teeing up this question, and now it's gone on my head. It'll be back in about 20 seconds. But let me take a quick side note then, or a quick jaunt over something. So, Jenny, you were talking about holding the emotional trash. How can a parent develop, like, what does that look like? What are the skills involved with holding emotional trash? And how can some parents start to work on building that? Because I think it doesn't come naturally to a lot of people. Because when we think about, like, just to go with the metaphor, like holding the emotional trash, it's holding it. It's not processing it. It's not recycling it. It's not throwing it away for somebody. Holding it, that's hard to do, because who likes holding trash? Nobody. Yeah. So
and holding trash doesn't also mean now it's mine. Just holding it for you does not make it now mine. And you pose a really important question, and that is, to me, it's emotional regulation. I would advise parents to look inward and reflect on their own emotional regulation in terms of when these hard conversations happen, what is my body physically feeling? Like, what do I need to stay calm? Yeah. What can I do to stay present? What can I do to tell myself, this is not for me to solve, fix, or take away. I'm just here to listen, right? I'm here to validate my kid. I'm here to let them know that I'm a safety net, right? When things, because life is ups and downs, right? And I want children to know that in the ups, we have safe adults who are there to congratulate us and enjoy with us. And when we have downs, we have safe adults who can also just be there to give us a hug, tell them, I hear you. That sounds like that sucked, right? Like that really sounds like that was uncomfortable for you. I totally hear you. And to listen and to be present, I think it takes a lot of emotional awareness of self to hold those boundaries. And it's hard, as a parent, it is hard because we want the best for our kids. And it's hard for a lot of parents to see their child in distress. It's hard for a lot of parents to see their child hurting. And I tend to tell myself, I tend to think of the struggles that I've had growing up, the hardships, the peer relationships that went sour, the romantic relationships that went sour, or the school struggles that I had. And I know that those helped build who I am, right? I know that without those, I wouldn't have strength and character and perspective. And I think that I tell myself, it's okay for them to be in this struggle because people who need struggle to have an opportunity to strengthen, right? And so I think teens and children need an adult who is just there with them so that they don't feel like they have to go through struggles alone. And the adult may not solve everything for me. They might not fix everything for me. They might not take the pain away, but I'm not going through it alone.
Yeah. That connection, beautiful. I mean, I just think I totally endorse everything you just said. And I would add to it that you also, as a parent, and really any of us who work with young people, have a really powerful role as models.
Yes.
So if you are concerned about your child being a good person, right, OCD or not, one of the most powerful forms, even in adolescence, is to model what you want them to be. Exactly. I really, right? Like when people tell me, oh, you're so gracious or you're so kind, I really do have to give credit to my parents because that was such a high value to them to always, to do our best, to be kind and compassionate and to be thoughtful and considerate. And it honors my family and their values to take what they showed me, what they taught me, but also strongly modeled and carry that on.
And I agree with that. I mean, I come from parents who I think respect was their number one, right? And so they respected me as a person. They respected my emotions, my thoughts, my preferences, or what have you. And so that is at the forefront as a parent. And I think that when parents don't have those role models, it's hard to know how to do that. And it's hard because there wasn't maybe a lot of practice for themselves. So that's when, individual support, individual therapy can be a great service, right? To help and that's the other thing I was going to mention to this parent is self-care. We have to take care of ourselves in order to take care of children and teens. And while you're holding the emotional trash, right, especially, take care of self. I'm a big advocate of sleep. Sleep is for me, sleep is number one, which is hard as we age, right? Sleep can get more challenging. But whatever it looks to you, I think it's that old, comparison of the airplane, put the oxygen mask on yourself before you assist your child. It's not prioritizing yourself over your child. Obviously, it's not prioritizing your safety, but it is a point to say that if we are not okay, it's hard to show up to the best of our capacity so our kids are okay.
Yeah, and I think especially if your kid is struggling, OCD tends to hijack the person experiencing the OCD, but also hijacks the family system. And, everything you're describing is so that what good parents do is pretty hardwired, right? Like, even if your kid's not in danger, if they're in distress, you're hardwired to respond and to meet it. And I think that as adults, our brains are more developed. And so it's another opportunity for us to stop and, like you said, Jenny, regulate ourselves and slow down. I mean, I was a nanny for many years, and it was a really good lesson in that, because if I yelled or got expressed frustration in certain ways, I would have lost my job. But what was really powerful about it is it helped me find ways to stop, slow down, calm before I responded.
Absolutely.
And I think that's an excellent tool. And I would do things like, I'm so frustrated with you guys right now that I need a minute. And then I would step back and take really big, obvious deep breaths. Sometimes I would do math out loud because I'm really bad at it. And it would bring me back to my reason. Because I think that children can be very, they can push our buttons for sure.
What?
But in terms of this balance, coming back to this particular idea of morality versus moral scrupulosity, I really do think modeling is powerful. And also parents have to be a little less rigid. Your kid is going to make mistakes and test boundaries and do things that are not
That's how we learn.
Sometimes.
That's how we learn.
100%. And their brains aren't fully developed. So,
right.
They have, there's all kinds of things going on, particularly like you said, in the adolescent brain, right? And it's not going to be a catastrophe usually.
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 But one thing I wanted to clarify, if I could, Elena, you said, parents are hardwired to respond. I think you said we are hardwired to respond. And what I ultimately want to clarify for anybody out there is that we're hardwired to respond, but all responses are not the same. And sometimes our knee-jerk reaction, or first off, it's not that there are those parents out there. Those people are really good at responding, and they're caring and they're loving, and then there's me, who's garbage and is terrible. It's not me, Kevin, but me, the person out there me, Kevin, but also me, the parent who is struggling. It's that, we all have our own skill sets and our own skill deficits. And some of these skills that we're talking, that's why I wanted to ask that question of Jenny, of how we can develop those skills, is because to have that mindset of, I can be here to hold, and I don't and I respond with kindness and support, and I have control over myself. And the phrase, the words, what is it? Emotional development. No, what is it? Emotional regulation. I hate that phrase because what does it mean? Handling your own big feelings.
Yeah.
And so not all of us are great at it, and not all of us are going to be great at it all the time. So to a parent out there who may be struggling with this and not knowing how to respond, you're going to mess up too. And you're going to miss that moment. And one thing that I wrote down in my notes for this parent, and for all parents out there, in that question of how do I respond to this kid without giving into the compulsion? You're gonna at some point.
Sometimes you will. Yeah.
And it's either because you missed it, which happens, or they figured out a way to sneakily get one in. Happens.
Totally.
Or it's hard.
It's easier sometimes.
It's easier. Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. Yeah. But I was going to add, we
got to get out the door. I'm just going to give the reassurance and go.
Yes. Yep. And those are, I'm going to say, acceptable and part of life. And we move on and we pick our battles with it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and they're an opportunity for gathering information and learning.
Yes. Yeah, I was going to say, you can always go back too. Like we
Yes.
may misspeak
Yes.
something. We may misspeak. We may react when we didn't really mean to react, or we may sigh or do something with our body, or rush a response. And you're allowed to go back to your kid and say, hey, this morning when you asked me that question and I said blah, 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 I was so concerned about getting late for school. I was so concerned about we got to eat breakfast that I think I answered you kind of too fast. Can I try that again? And that takes a lot of vulnerability, right?
Mm-hmm.
It takes a lot of vulnerability, which I think some parents struggle with, because
people. Nobody
People,
wants to be the bad guy.
Yeah. But when we talk about the parent-child relationship, some parents want to feel that authority, that sense of being the one in charge. And sometimes we also mess up because we're human, right? And so we model. I completely agree with you, Elena. I say it in my classes all the time, behave how you want children to behave.
Yes.
And as a parent, taking my instructor hat off for a minute, as a parent, I assume that my children will seek people like their parents in friendships and relationships.
Yes.
So who do I want my kid to seek out? Right. And because we're the first teachers of healthy relationships, we're the first teachers of relationships, let's just say. Right. And so we really have an opportunity to provide in that way. And if we struggle, to work on self so we can better provide that way.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I also think there's a lot of room for asking for support too. Yes. Right? So some forms of moral scrupulosity, for example, involve religiosity. And that we could change this question to go, how do I raise my child to be a good insert religion, right? Catholic, Christian, Muslim, Jewish, Buddhist, right? And not give in to compulsions where they're confessing to me. I think that we also need to, maybe there's a supporter where it's like, okay, we're going to bring in the priest or the rabbi or the imam to, is that the right word? I forgive me if I use the wrong word, or the lama, to once normalize things, right? If it's about what if I'm not doing these things right, and also like supporters just in general. Like it can be really exhausting parenting in general, and then parenting a child with OCD who's in distress and who's asking for a lot of reassurance, or asking for routines to be changed, or asking for evidence or proof that they're a good person. And the reality is that a lot of times, I wouldn't say this to the child necessarily, but OCD likes to attack what we value. So I think I said at the beginning, like the kid with moral scrupulosity is probably the least likely. They're already spending too much time trying to figure out if they were being good or bad. Like this is the kid you don't have to you don't have to really worry about necessarily in terms of morality. It's almost like we almost want to be like, hey, this is going to sound strange, but with these kids, I will say, now you're going to tell a harmless lie at school. And then you're going to get in the car, and instead of confessing, you're going to tell your mom a harmless lie about school. And you're not going to confess it that you told a lie ever.
And to that point, it's what we're trying to teach in that isn't how to lie better.
Please.
It's what we're teaching.
Jenny's face.
So you're doing what?
Went,
I'm going to have a conversation with Kevin on Saturday.
We're not teaching them to lie better.
But
that's the point of me asking kids with moral scrup to purposely tell. Remember, I said harmless lie.
Yeah.
What's harmless though?
That's the boundary. That's when the rules.
That's the boundary. That's the ground rules. Right.
These are the harmful things that are appropriate.
Untruths are harmful too. Right.
But
if my friend has an ugly baby, I'm not going to say. And if they're like, look at how beautiful my child is, I'm not going to say,
yes, your gargoyle is beautiful.
Yeah, I'm not going to tell them I don't find your baby beautiful.
Where is your baby's bridge that it lives under? We're just asking questions. What we're trying to teach the kids with the exposure, what we're trying to do is to teach them to sit with that discomfort. because it is uncomfortable. The reality is we are all, it's normative and it's typical. We are going to tell those small lies. How was the day? It's fine.
Yeah.
Right? What time did you get to work today? 9:00. No, you didn't. It was 9:02. Right? Or whatever it is. These are harmless, useless lies.
Right.
But to a scrupulous kid, they can be a big deal. But we're not teaching them to be honest all the time in like firm, rigid, black and white.
Rigid.
And we're also not teaching them to be just loosey-goosey lie about everything. It's the reality is sometimes when we do things that get off the rails of our values, and that's where guilt comes in, that we need to own up to it, which can come in an acknowledgement. Hey, Mom, Dad, I said this thing. And we go, yeah, that sucks. But that there's nothing that the mom or dad or parent or whoever is going to say that's going to alleviate it to OCD standards. What we're doing is we're saying, yes, you did the right thing by owning up to it. And now we let that crappy feeling go away because that bad feeling is there, and that bad feeling is good in a way to put you back on track. But it'll go away, but we're not going to harp on it, ruminate on it, or make that the central focus of our life.
I have a question because when I work with children and families, and there's often unwanted behavior and it's habitual or repetitive, or even when I talk to teachers, childcare teachers who are struggling with unwanted behavior in the classrooms, we talk a lot about, catching a kid doing well, right? Instead of catching a kid doing something wrong, catch them doing good or doing well or doing something. And so I wonder, and I'm curious if this would be a situation where a parent would also want to have a conversation with the teacher and just let them know what the struggles are right now, or let them know whatever. I mean, I'm sure, I don't know if an IEP would be included here, so maybe the teacher already knows. I don't know the specifics for individuals, but would it be overstepping or would it be inappropriate if you were to ask the teacher, hey, whenever you catch my kid doing something, kind or proactive, or can you maybe make an attempt to, is that counterintuitive to notice or mention when you catch a kid or a teen doing something of good character?
Depends on the kid.
If they're a morally scrupulous kid with moral scrupulously OCD, we don't want to point that out because we want them to tolerate the uncertainty that I might not always be good. Because, okay, like here's the example. A younger kid is going to lie and think it's fine if they get away with it.
Right.
Right? A younger kid with moral scrupulous OCD, whereas their peers would lie to get away with it, they're going the other direction where they're confessing things that are not worthy of confession. So if we now then are praising, and this happens to kids as they get positive reinforcement and praise for perfectionistic behavior, for overly scrupulous behavior, that behavior in like a typical kid without moral scrupulosity, the parent behavior of pointing out the good, is intuitive. A lot of how we respond as parents, teachers, caregivers to kids with OCD, and it does depend somewhat on the theme, is counterintuitive. So we're going to focus on the emotion, right, rather than.
As I was saying it, I'm like, I actually think I know what she's going to say.
It's kind of counterintuitive in a way,
It's almost making more focus on what we don't need more focus on. Right. It's
right now, not to say that it can't be helpful to have a 504 or an IEP for certain situations. Right. And not that it can't be helpful to even have like an informal, the teacher know. I am very much of, it sounds like the same orientation where I feel very strongly about having respect for kids. So I always want to get their permission first.
Absolutely.
Right. And then it's a collaboration where everybody's on the same team. So, a lot of kids will present with OCD differently at school than at home.
Yeah.
They will never melt down at school. Or if they're showing signs of it at school that are obvious, it's getting to be lots of symptoms, maybe more severe. But also, there are ways teachers can help by gathering information even, like how many times is this kid with contamination going to the bathroom? How many times are they getting up in the classroom, like for younger kids that has a sink in it? right? Are you noticing any tapping or touching? So yeah, I think collaboration is brilliant.
Yeah.
Supporters with family members, but always we want the child to have some buy-in, because there can be like some shame and like not wanting people to know. And we want to make sure that they have a right to that self-determination in terms of who knows.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I think one thing that could, to Jenny's point in pointing out things that are going really well, or that the kid is doing really well, I think I love that approach for the vast majority of kids. It's these specific circumstances where perhaps the parent or the teacher may need to know, and it would be beneficial for them to know what some of their kids' compulsions are, as subtle as they may be, so that in those situations the teacher can actually say, "Hey, I noticed you only asked once," or "Hey, I noticed that you didn't do this. Great job." Right. So yes, absolutely. But I think it really depends on the kid and what it is that we're praising and why.
Right.
But so I think that can be incredibly helpful.
That makes sense.
Yeah, like response prevention, basically. And sometimes, this particular caller with the confession, Kevin and I have a lot of experience with OCD, so we know that it's really common for confession to be like, what? You didn't do anything wrong. Just kind of because it sounds so silly that they would even confess it. But their brain has latched onto it. So we really want to stay focused on the emotion. Again, like I can see that you feel really overwhelmed. And then the positive reinforcement is, I can see how anxious you are. You didn't ask me for reassurance. And then I saw you choose to go take the dog for a walk and do what you needed to do anyway, even though you were really, really wanting to confess. Great job.
Yeah.
I also wanted to I'll let Jenny, did you want to respond to that at all or no?
No, I'm just thinking of all these other things in my head of responses, but I think it's really relevant to stay on topic here.
Okay. One thing that it was mentioned really early on in our conversation was about trusting yourself. And I know the ICBT people out there are big on are on trusting you and your memories and your experience, right? Not trust. They would talk about it as, and again, some people are going to get mad at me for saying it wrong, probably, but outsourcing their confidence and outsourcing their assurance to the presence or absence of anxiety, not their own rational sense of self or their rational understanding of themselves. So maybe we would want to be developing this kid's ability to trust their self and trust that rational mind that says this thing isn't a big deal. Anxiety, though, jumps in and says it is a big deal. Yeah. And you'll know it's not a big deal anymore once the feeling, the badness goes away. Right. Or someone says, some magical phrase that is you're okay, nothing bad's going to happen, you're a good kid, whatever it is.
Whatever certainty, you won't throw up or you're not going to get sick from touching that or whatever it is.
Right. So we want these kids to develop and adults to develop a trust that, okay, my anxiety is saying one thing, but rationally, based on my experiences, based on what other people have said historically, this isn't something that I need to spend a lot of time in. So I'm going to trust that maybe this is one of those situations that isn't worth paying attention to. So I'm not going to give in to my compulsion this time. What are some things that we can do to help build a kid's trust in themselves that they can be, in a sense, self-reliant?
Wow, that is a big question, and I mean, my first response.
And you two are going to provide the perfect, succinct answers that will go worldwide, right?
No pressure.
No pressure or nothing.
I mean, the first thing I think of is they need trusting people. I mean, again, it goes back to that model, right? To know how to trust self,
attachment
is to be trusted and to have trustworthy people around me. But I also really encourage parents to narrate a lot, even things that you wouldn't normally narrate out loud.
Parental behavioral tip, pay attention.
I forgot my laptop. Gosh darn, now, I'm going to be late, but you know what? I need my laptop and I need to make that right. It might sound silly to narrate it and to talk it out loud, but not only does it help the adult with emotional regulation, right, and processing, but you're also modeling how to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And so I truly believe that our words, when we are the parent and adults who are with children the most, our words become their inner thoughts and become how they speak to themselves. So how we speak to them really does become how they speak to themselves. And so, even just coming here today, I mean, I will be vulnerable and share that with my daughter. My daughter got up, she's 15, and she got up to give me a hug because she knows that I was excited about this, and she is a big feeler, and she's a hugger. And just saying, I'm excited to do this. This is something new, and new is scary, right? This is my first podcast, right? And so acknowledging that and saying, but you know what? Yeah. I trust Uncle Kevin, right? I trust Kevin, right? I trust the people I'm going to be with, right? And I also trust my information that I have to share, right? And my intention of going into this, and just articulating that with her, I believe, academically, professionally, and just as a parent, I believe that will also help her when she's faced with those situations of trusting herself and feeling nervous or feeling excited or feeling big emotions that kind of seem overwhelming to her. And just giving that language. So I think a lot of it has to do with, again, the modeling, the conversations, which is a hard thing to do for a lot of adults. I just want to recognize that. I mean, a lot of parents struggle with vulnerability and communicating feelings and talking about emotions and apologizing to their kids. And I think that's where I want to, encourage parents to get their individual support, their own individual therapy or support to help them with that, because that is what will in turn help their child and model that.
Absolutely. I second all of that. Absolutely. I think also with trust, I think for the kids with OCD, it's, we want them to more learn to embrace their uncertainty and to be okay with uncertainty. I think for parents, one thing I always say to them before I start working with them is, I need you because I'm the expert on OCD and anxiety, but you're the expert on your child. So I think that it's part of OCD's game to wrap up everybody into trying to figure it out sometimes, right? So I encourage parents to go, listen, you're not going to be perfect either, but you can trust that you're the expert on your child and you know your child in a way that no one else does. So I think that you can, you don't necessarily need to spend a lot of time trying to figure out, is this moral scrupulosity? How do I raise a kid with moral scrupulosity and allow them and teach them to be moral? The fact that you're even asking that question, to me, is an indication of care for your child and wanting to raise them to be a moral person.
Yeah,
and we want to kind of separate the two, Go ahead, Jenny. Sorry.
I'm just really curious what your thoughts about this. So when we are working with young children, relating to them, let's say a child is just having a hard time waiting for their food to come from the restaurant, right? Waiting for their turn. And we say, I know it's so hard to wait, right? It's really hard for me to wait too. And we use a relation tactic, right? I've been there before. I've felt that before. And I've noticed that tends to backfire a little bit as the child gets older.
Yes.
And so, so that's a separate issue from my question to you. In adolescence, that can backfire because when we say those things, and it comes from a good place. It comes from, I'm trying to relate to my teen. I'm trying to validate. Oh, I've been broken up before too. I know what that feels like. But in adolescence, there's, this cognitive personal fable thing going on, right? Where you don't know what it's like to be me. And how dare you say that? And it almost can feel dismissive. So I'm curious, my question is for children or teens with OCD or morality, how does that approach pan out?
Okay, so I think part of it is what Kevin was saying earlier, is that parents will be overzealous about nitpicking whether something's OCD or not, and then not believe their kid when they say it isn't. So I think it's, first of all, it's not a parent's job to identify what is and isn't OCD. It's their job to identify what is and what they are doing, helpful or unhelpful, in response to their kids' symptoms. So I think some of that is like, you're responsible for your kids, but you're not hyper responsible for them. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. And that takes me back to Lisa D'Amour's idea of mental health.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Because she says that it's not about feeling good all the time. Mental health is not about feeling good all the time. It's about having appropriate and proportional emotions to situations, right? And so if a child with OCD or not feels a certain way because of how they behaved or how they reacted, that's
right. Like, okay, for example, in first grade, there was a book that I really loved in our little reading area in the back of the room. And I wanted that book so bad. My mom would not buy it for me. And I loved that book. And so I stole it. I put it under my shirt the last day of school. And then I stuck it into my bag and I took it home and I hid it under my pillow. I was early. So I must have been 5 or 6. And I read it, but like after lights out for 2 nights, and then I felt so guilty. I told my mom, and we walked to school, and I returned it. So she wasn't being protective of me. She wasn't being demanding either. She wasn't shaming me for it. She was like, I totally get it. When we want things, it's really hard to like not have them. And
you made a mistake.
So like, yeah, and it's not okay, so we're going to take that back. Now, that age group, like, totally normative. I think it's totally normative. Now, if we're talking about adolescence, because you're absolutely right, I have a beloved adolescent in my life who accuses me of being too doting.
No.
Oh, straight up. Shocking, isn't it? I'm like, I just asked if you wanted a glass of water.
Back off.
Back off, lady. So I think for adolescents, it's more about, I love Lisa D'Amour too. And she would probably say, you want them to know, like, don't give unsolicited advice, make your presence known, find ways to connect. Right? So I really love the idea of starting early with family connection. Like, there are things that are non-negotiable, so that when they're a teenager, no matter how cheesy you think it is, we're doing family game night or family movie night, or, Sunday dinner is non-negotiable. There are certain things, right? So I think it's more about connection.
Yes.
Does that resonate with you?
Well, yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Yeah. How about you, Kevin?
I'm terrible at connection.
No, you're not.
Stop. Self-deprecating person.
I go in and out of it. It can be hard sometimes. Yeah. It can be hard.
Totally.
And that's where I feel uncomfortable saying, my response is self-deprecation, because that's my love language. But sometimes I miss it and it stinks. And,
totally.
and this is the vulnerability that I've probably shared with y'all. It's like every mistake I go, it's like, and that's why my daughter will be a stripper when she's older. That's how I know.
Right.
Because I made that mistake that one time. So that's what happened. That's how that works. So.
Well, yeah.
Yes. You're just going to agree. So, and she'll have a lot of Diet Coke and she'll be fine.
Yeah.
But, yeah. But anyways, so getting back to it, I was reading the original question. And it sounds like it was boiling down to, how do parents draw the line between guiding kids' morals and character without giving into compulsions?
I mean, again, I think we want to be able to build awareness of and identify the compulsions and collaborate, hopefully, with a provider to how are we going to reduce those compulsions, help them see the ways that compulsions are actually unhelpful and getting in the way, right?
Yeah.
Creating those boundaries of time spent on this, the number of times to ask for reassurance, but also focusing on being present for your kid and allowing them to share what they share without it turning into what it might turn into.
I mean, I think that we also want to use like appropriate language. So I'm thinking about what we were talking about with the ground rules. Like those are going to have to shift and change, you know? And I think this is something that every parent probably struggles with. Like something will come up and then you're like, oh, we never even talked about that or thought about that coming up. So it's like,
absolutely.
Totally. So with younger kids, it might be like, I mean, with all children, it's like there are certain adult issues. If you hear that somebody's being harmed, you need to tell us.
Yeah.
Like that's pretty clear, right? But there's other things like if there's like, bullying, we want them to tell us. But there's fine lines, right? So there might be like, especially with girls and the way that girls kind of communicate with each other, which can be different from boys, right? That there might be like triads of girls where one keeps getting pushed out, or there's changes, particularly around like middle school, right? So if it's, we're not always going to be perfect, but this is also trusting we are setting an example and we are living our ethical and moral values as part of our family. Our family rules grounded in our values, right? Are they simple? Are we teaching our kids to be self-sufficient? Because you asked earlier something about building independence or self-sufficiency, and the first thing that came to my mind was chores from a very young age. And a lot of times modern parents are so busy, it's easier to do it yourself. But if you have even little kids starting very young who are helping around the house and are doing age-appropriate chores, that is an incredible way to build self-sufficiency.
Yeah, I agree.
And confidence.
And they get older.
And self-efficacy, and then they know what to do when they go out in the world. Plus, I was raised in the Midwest, like, give them your work.
I to be honest, I left to come to do this, and I told my son, can you please unload and load the dishwasher while I'm out? Thanks. That'd be so helpful, because I know when I get home and I start dinner, it's going to be so helpful that task will be off my plate. And when I come home, I'll say, thank you so much for doing that, because now I can cook in a prepared, ready kitchen for me to, and that communication, though, I think that piece is so important, to say that and to acknowledge that, because that's how they see their help actually affecting the family unit and someone else. Yeah.
Not just because I said so.
Exactly.
This is we're part of a community here.
Right.
Our system is a community, and we all have to, contribute.
Yeah.
That's how we live in the world.
That's right. And
what about you? What about you, Kevin? What would your answer be to the specific question that you just repeated?
The specific question about how do parents draw the line? Let's say, how do parents draw the line between guiding kids' morals and character without giving it a compulsion? I mean, starting with that baseline of I'm going to make that mistake and give into a compulsion, so I'm not under this false belief that I can do this perfectly. Right?
Yeah.
So I'm going to. So I think part of what I would do if I was, if they were on my couch, I would be talking about, what are the compulsions that they're aware of? How do they tend to fall back into those patterns, those unhelpful patterns? How do I raise the awareness for the kid that the thing that they're doing is a compulsion? and also to highlight what is the thing that's driving it. What's the moral and value that's driving the need for that compulsion? And it's, you know, to kind of Elena's point earlier, it's like, because you're a good kid, you have this question, right? That's a value of yours that something in you was pushing against or suggested was not the case. So the compulsion is there to try to prove, no, this is the case.
Yeah.
Right. So it's not reinforcing and saying, you know, constantly you're a good kid so that feeling goes down, but saying, you know what? You've told me that once. I appreciate you telling me. Let's get on with our day. Mm-hmm. Right.
Mm-hmm. These particular kids too, it brings to mind, I'm guessing you've had this experience, Kevin. They tend to have a very, not always, but they tend to have a strong, rigid sense of justice.
Oh, yeah.
So they might be the kids who are like tattling to the teacher on the other kids and then having problems socially because of that, or those like, and it causes them problems because the world is not always just. It often isn't. So it's like we kind of have to accept that, like, not everybody shares. So that's where you bring in the acceptance piece. Not everybody's going to share our values and ethical system or families. And how do we live in a world with acceptance of the difficulty that not everybody is like that? How can we learn to tolerate that?
Yeah.
And I gather that these children, nuance is also difficult a lot of times, right?
It's really black and white.
Yeah, it's very black and white. And one rule is generalized for all situations when not all situations, right? Things are nuanced.
Right.
That could be a challenge.
If I lie once, I'm a terrible person.
Now's your chance to talk about Kohlberg.
We kind of already have.
We kind of already have. All right.
So you mentioned stealing. I was like, well, there's the Heinz dilemma right there.
I mean, that would be pre-conventional morality, right? Is I got away with it, so it's moral.
My kids are in the it's not fair phase. And rather than making it fair, I say, no, it's not. Mm-hmm. And some things aren't fair. And we need to sit with that. It's like things eventually come around, but not every moment is going to be fair. Right. And that stinks. But I am hoping that that my nonsense is going to create a sense of kind of flexibility and recognition that if it doesn't work out, we have to move forward somehow. We can't get stuck in whatever the unfairness is. It's just going to be unfair.
Yeah.
Let's get to the next checkpoint of whatever the moral conundrum is, and we'll deal with that one when we're there. But we've got to move on from whatever that thing is.
Yeah.
It's a psychological flexibility, I think, is the key. My dad used to always say, I don't know whoever told you life is fair because it wasn't me. Which is, I mean, it's a little harsh, but there is that strong kind of justice thing that we can see with some of these kids. And there's a difference, it's like they may be right, but they're also suffering because of it, because that rigidity, it's hard to live in the world. Like, do you want to be right all the time and like rigid about justice? And I'm not saying that means you automatically, it's not black and white the other way. It doesn't automatically mean now you're an unjust person. Mm-hmm. Or do you want to accept that that's the world we live in and better tolerate so it's not hooking you and leading you away from who you want to be and your life you want to have?
And that tolerance, I think that gets at the core of what we do in OCD treatment. It's getting at how do we tolerate that bad and uncomfortable feeling, not the bad and uncomfortable truth of whatever this thing is, right? Hurting someone's feelings, that isn't great, but it's part of life. But it's more of how do we deal with that, and because meaning we may intentionally hurt someone's feelings because we are, in a mood, or we may unintentionally because I didn't know I was stepping in a landmine when I said X, Y, or Z, or did X, Y, or Z. But it's part of life. We are going to hurt someone's feelings. So how do we deal with our own struggles with that. I think that's at the core of what I mean, you've heard me say before, OCD isn't really a thought problem, it's a feeling problem. If we can get, it's the feeling that's the thing we have to sit with.
Yeah. Yeah. And it just reminds me of the narrative that I was talking about when I described, I forgot my laptop or I forgot my keys. Sometimes we say, I'm so stupid, I forgot to do blah. Or I'm so dumb, I didn't remember this. And when we say those things, to ourselves, or we say to our out loud, that's modeling. And so removing those words, even if it's saying, no, I'm not dumb, I shouldn't have said that, I just forgot. And sometimes I'm going to forget things. I got to go back home and get that. And I think normalizing those moments where we put our foot in our mouth, or we forget, or we say the wrong thing, or we joke when the joke didn't land, or we say something, to be honest and show our kids, hey, that happens to me too. And you know what? Yeah, that was uncomfortable in the moment, but next time I'll be more aware of that, and to vocalize that, to normalize that kind of language.
I heard my kid, my 5-year-old, in the back seat. Something happened that he was upset with, and his response was, "Oh shoot! Oh shoot!" Because that's if I make a mistake, I go, "Oh shoot!" Like that's the language that I use, and I'm like, homeboy's using it. But it's so on the point. This little 5-year-old is adorable saying that. But it's like, it's to that point, is the language that we use. And when we started introducing TV shows that have more mature content, meaning they people die in them, or, it's cartoons where, someone says something maybe a little bit snarkier than we would speak to each other in the family. We hear it. They start to say it. So they're picking it up, and it's not for any parent out there to just beat themselves up or to rake themselves over the coals. It's just we call our kids Roz from Monsters Inc. It's the character who says, "Always listening." They're always listening. So with the things that we're doing, they are going to be doing soon, and watching, for that matter. Exactly right. Yeah. So. I think to this, to wrap it up, since I've taken so much of your time, and I appreciate you two being so generous with it, to this parent, the fact that they called in with this question, I think speaks volumes to most likely a great direction that they are going on, and being aware that there can be pitfalls is, to a certain degree, all we need to do. Knowing that when the pitfalls come, we go, oh, yeah, we knew it was going to be here. Well, how do we work together to navigate through this to the next thing? But I don't know. How would you – so at the end of our time, so I know I should wrap it up and let you all get back to your lives. What would you be able to tag on to the end of this that would fix the problem entirely? Or would be your last bit of wisdom for this parent, for this kid, or for them together? Again, to ditto what you said, the fact that the parent's calling in and sharing this is already a step in a beautiful direction, and also to have given their child the space to share their own version, or their own voice, to have their own voice, I think is also very commendable here. So I just want to uplift the parent right now and just thank them for doing what they're doing, because they made the call because they care, right? And I also think that because I don't know this family, but I get the sense that there's some connection there. Like the parent-child has a connection. The child already voiced that they come home wanting to share and the burden's lifted. So I'm just making the assumption that there is emotional connection there. To trust that, and to trust your parent intuition. Because if you have that connected relationship, and you are able to listen to your voice and listen to your gut, listen to your inside, I believe, and I can't say for certain because I don't like to speak in absolutes when we talk about child development, but I believe that in most cases they'll know when things are OCD related, or, typical questions related, or, and to trust that, and to just, like you said, Kevin, just give yourself grace that you're not always going to get it, because none of us always get it. We're all human.
Yeah, I used to say that parenting was hard, but I changed that to conscious parenting is hard. right? Like being conscious and really, wanting to do your best, wanting to learn, wanting to be a better parent. I mean, it's a job that you have to practice on the job. And it changes as soon as you're in one spot, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we're good. Now they've changed. So
figured him out. The combination lock changes.
It just,
And as they should. As they should.
Yeah, as they should. As they should.
So I really do. I mean, it's not as specific to what this parent asks. I really do encourage parents to have at least a cursory learning of typical or normative development. Mm-hmm. And that will help you know what's like atypical, right? I think that can be really helpful. And then, just kind of understanding that we're approaching OCD as parents, caregivers, loved ones in a counterintuitive way. Mm-hmm. So we don't want parents to be their children's therapists. So if possible, work with a therapist and kind of hand that over and then collaborate because you're the one at home. Mm-hmm. But I think everything that we've already said, trusting yourself, trusting your parenting, setting up ground rules, all of that I think is all really helpful too.
And self-care.
Yes. I think parents should take breaks away from their children, like they should have a date night where you don't talk about kids, because we do know that marital satisfaction during child rearing years can take a bit of a hit.
And if there isn't a support system, to seek one and to look in the community or ask therapists for resources to, some people don't have family. Some people don't have grandparents to help out and watch their kids or neighbors or whatever. Right. So to social support, I agree with you, Elena, about understanding just typical child development. Those two protective factors are really invaluable.
I totally agree. I think of when I was a kid, in our neighborhood, it was really cool and unique. There was a babysitting co-op. Mm-hmm. So like all the numbers were, inside a kitchen cabinet, and it would be like my sister and I would get dropped off with this family, or sometimes, there's seeking support, I think is really important, especially if you have a kid with OCD. There's just such great resources out there now, and it's so misunderstood, and those families can kind of have shame and, doubt and just not want to talk about it. But I just think parents in general need support, but particularly parents with treating or raising kids with OCD. Really need support.
Well, thank you two so much for spending all this time and sharing your wisdom and sharing your experience with this listener and all listeners out there. So I'll release you back to the wild, but thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Kevin, for having us.
My pleasure. Have a good day. Thank you for listening to the Fearcast. If you would like your question answered on a future episode, please click on the Submit a Question link at fearcastpodcast.com. If you would like your question answered sooner, please send me a recording of your question to questions@fearcastpodcast.com, or by sending me an audio message through Instagram by DMing me at fearcastpodcast on Instagram. If you like the Fearcast, please write a review on your podcast platform of choice. Please remember that the Fearcast is not a substitute for psychotherapy. If you need a little bit of help in your recovery, please go over to fearcastpodcast.com and click on the Find Help link, and there's going to be some information for you there. So until next time, take a risk, challenge yourself, and don't take your brain too seriously. Bye.